Back to another enlightening episode of The Truth About the Plant, the show that takes you on a journey through the world of psychoactive plants and alternative wellness, all while delivering real, actionable insights you crave. I'm your host, Christina Dees, and this is my equally
Oh, wait,
talented
Christina,
co-host.
you're breaking up.
Kind of thought this was going to be a problem. On the Wi-Fi, if I should just use my phone, 5G, I'm just going to switch to that.
She's
Yeah, we did
pixelated.
this one video, Nick,
Okay.
where our guest was in Jamaica
All right.
and we were trying to record it and we did the whole episode. And then when I went and played it back, like her internet was not good at all and it totally cut out. We had to re-record the whole thing and she was trying to do it like on the beach where it was like,
Yeah.
Oh, in Jamaica? Yeah, that internet was not good. I'm just going to use my 5G on my phone, and I just connected to that.
She's still looking pixelated, like really.
Yeah,
pixelated.
it's okay. It sometimes it looks like that when you're recording it, but then when they upload it.
Welcome back to another enlightening episode of The Truth About the Plant, the show that takes you on a journey through the world of psychoactive plants and alternative wellness, all while delivering real, actionable insights you crave. I'm your host, Christina Dees, and this is my equally talented co-host, Dr. Amanda Ryman. And Dr. Ryman, you get to tell everyone why we're here.
Well, we are here because it can be so difficult to find good information about cannabis on the internet. You may have a really important question, one that could actually impact your health and well-being. You go to Google. Not only do you get 100 different responses back, but many of those responses will completely contradict each other. So how do you know the truth? Well, that's where we come in. We're here to give you evidence-informed, fact-based information about cannabis in 15 minutes or less, answering your most pressing questions so that you can get the information you need and get on with your day. So you can think of us as your really cool aunties or your kick-ass granddaughters, basically the women in your life who will always tell you the truth.
And this month we are celebrating 1 year of episodes, and we're welcoming back for part 2 of What Are Cannabis Concentrates with the one and only Nick Tanem. So if you've ever stood in front of a cannabis concentrate label, scratching your head at all those numbers and terms, this episode is for you. So today we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of concentrates. We're going to talk about safe consumption, what you need to know if you're a first-timer, what happens if you feel too high. Does dabbing have to be high THC? We're going to talk about efficiency of concentrates and, of course, equipment. So strap in because we're going to demystify the world of extracts, or you get to find out what really goes into that little jar. All right, Nick T, welcome back. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to continue this conversation. We know that concentrates are in the dispensaries. We know that folks are seeing them, but they may be a little bit afraid to try them. They're not sure how they're supposed to consume them. They may have heard things about dabbing and people getting too high. So really, we want to make sure that people know what they're getting into, that they know how to use these products safely. On the last episode, we kind of got into more of the chemistry and the production of how different types of concentrates are made. And then as we ended the last episode, we had started to get into the consumption side. So if I am out there and I am newer to concentrates, whether that be hash or shatter or oil or rosin or resin, we talked a bit about what the live means, how these products are made. But what should I expect in terms of effect? What does it feel like to consume cannabis concentrates?
Well, for somebody like myself who consumes them every single day, it feels normal, to be completely honest. I don't get too much of an effect for my normal medicine. If there's a product that I consume that's has a different terpene profile than I'm used to, oftentimes I get a little bit more of an effect. But in general, you can build up a tolerance to concentrates just like anything else. The effect for a user that's not used to concentrates, that has never tried a dab before, can be oftentimes overwhelming, especially if you take a hot dab. So we always really recommend going low and slow. I think those are the most important factors to consider when a new user is taking a dab, because if you take it at a really low temperature, you're going to get more flavor and less of the high. And as you increase temperature on that dab, you're going to increase the high and decrease the flavor in reality. So finding that balance is really key for users in general. The new user, though, is going to want to start low.
Okay, so it's kind of like the difference between sipping a bourbon and then just taking back the whole shot at once.
Definitely.
So we want to have more of a sip, which is going to mean a lower temperature. So it's going to vaporize the cannabinoids at a slower pace. And you're going to get more of that flavor. So one of the things that I hear from folks who are curious about dabbing is they're afraid that they're just going to get too high, that they're going to take a dab and it's going to go right to their head and they're just going to get overwhelmed almost immediately. So starting at a lower temperature is definitely a way to help combat that. But let's say that someone offers me one and I take it, and then as soon as I am done, it just goes right to my head and I start to feel really high. Are there things that people can do in that situation to make sure that they don't hurt themselves or fall down or, start to panic or have anxiety?
Yeah, first and foremost, you're not going to die. This can never kill you. And we've proven that. So first and foremost, calm down and understand that even if your brain is going on a pattern of circles and you're overthinking, understand that this can't kill you. You can make some poor decisions, but I would step back and really, I suggest drinking water. I suggest eating food. Eat a bunch of munchies. Get some fat in you to absorb up some of that THC because THC is going to be fat soluble. And then also, black pepper has been, known to decrease the effects of cannabis. So getting some of that beta caryophyllene in your system, eating it, smelling it, is going to help decrease, getting too high. But really, it's never going to last too long. I'd say that in general, the high THC concentrates that might not have that broad spectrum are going to hit you pretty quickly, but they're probably also going to fade fast as well. It's not something that's going to linger for hours and hours and hours. If it's going to linger for more than a couple hours, you're probably going to go to sleep.
All right, well, that's good to know. And it's very similar to advice that we give people overall about consuming too much THC. Have some water, have something to eat, sniff some black peppercorns, try to relax, try to remember that it will pass. And unlike an edible high, which can last quite a
A
while,
lot longer.
your high from a dab is going to be up pretty quickly, but then it's going to come down fairly quickly. So just being able to relax, I think, is the key and not let your brain run away with itself. And similarly, I will say the advice we give if you're with someone that has consumed too much THC is not to tell them that you've never seen anyone that high before, not to
Sorry,
tell
don't mean to
them
laugh.
that their friend got that high and didn't come down for 5 days. You want to reassure them that they're going to be okay, that they're going to come down quickly. And that leads me to my next question. A lot of times when we think about dabbing and when people talk about dabbing, they are really kind of referring to consuming a high amount of THC in a short period of time because you've got this very concentrated product. You are inhaling it very quickly into your system. But dabs don't always have to be about high THC. Can you talk a little bit about some of the variability? When we talk about dabbing, we're really talking about a method of ingestion. We're not necessarily talking about specifically high THC concentrates.
No, and when we're talking about dabbing, we're also talking about utilizing a concentrate. You can't really dab flour. You can vaporize flour, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I would say, sorry, I just blanked. I would say first and foremost, concentrates in general can be any form of concentration. So whether that flower, that plant was high in CBD or high in CBG or THCV, if you concentrate that plant, generally speaking, depending on the polarity, you're going to be concentrating those cannabinoids that are higher in that plant. So we can concentrate hemp plants and get high CBD ratios, oftentimes 20 to 1 and higher, and yeah, higher in hemp as well. So under the definitions of hemp, but you can create hemp concentrates and dab hemp concentrates, and oftentimes those aren't not going to have the psychoactive components, you know. So if you dab 100% CBD isolate, you're not going to have a psychoactive component whatsoever. The cool thing about CBD isolate, it's a nice introduction to dabbing, because if you take it at, I'd say, a lower temperature, you're getting more of this like broad spectrum cherry cola flavor. But then if you increase temperature, it's like cherry cough syrup. It's interesting. You can change the flavor and it will slightly change the effect, but I've never really gotten a psychoactive effect from CBD. You're going to get more of, body relaxation and some of the other effects, but not necessarily psychoactive.
So I think this is really important because when I've talked to folks who are like, "Oh, concentrates are too potent for me," or "dabbing is too intense for me," I think they're making the assumption that that dabbing automatically means high THC. And what we're really talking about are two separate things. We're talking about dabbing as a method of consumption, a very high temperature to vaporize the cannabinoids and terpenes in the concentrate. And then we're talking about the product of a concentrate, which, just like cannabis flower, can vary in terms of how much THC and how much CBD is in it. And the dabbing is really just the way you are consuming it. And
100%.
doesn't necessarily, even though we're at the dispensary, a lot of products that are in the concentrate category are high THC because a lot of people want those potencies, just like with flower. Most of the flower we see in a dispensary is high THC because that's what people want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that exists. So, where I'm going with this is for medical patients. I've heard medical patients say that dabbing is a very effective method of consumption. So, can you talk a little bit about the efficacy and efficiency of dabbing as a method of consumption for people that maybe are in pain or are nauseous or are looking for a very intense effect very quickly?
Definitely. Concentrates are going to hit you a lot quicker than flour. It's going to go right into your system. So I've even seen cases where somebody's having a seizure and they're still able to, breathe while they're having a seizure. And I've seen people, produce a dab or a vapor and get it into their system, whether that's like literally giving them mouth to mouth type with a concentrate. I've seen other devices just being shoved into somebody's mouth and it's instant, it's instantaneous. Whereas if you're using an edible, I've oftentimes seen it take a little bit longer. Or even if you're, consuming flour for seizure patients. And oftentimes seizure patients, it's going to be difficult to consume anything during that stage. But we've definitely seen it work. So I'd say that that's just an example, though. I think that concentrates in general are just going to be um, more accurate to dose. So titration can be a lot easier for concentrates than flour. Whereas you take a rip of flour and it's really hard to tell exactly how much THC you're getting into your system. I think concentrates can be a lot more easy to titrate. They can be a lot more exact. But now we are seeing concentrates not only being vaporized, but you can eat concentrates. And so making edibles with concentrates makes it so that you're not having to use as much fats and other things that you don't want, in edibles if you're dealing with certain health restrictions or ailments. So, there's just so many different amazing options that concentrates can provide for a medical patient. Concentrates in the form of patches, even, previous to concentrates, we weren't really able to utilize those style of transdermal patches without having concentrates involved. So I think concentrates are extremely medicinal. To kind of hop back though, to not scare people, a dab doesn't have to be hot in temperature, and it doesn't have to be utilized with a torch. You don't have to use a nail to take a dab. There's so many other ways to consume or vaporize that concentrate. As I mentioned, transdermal, edible, but also vaporizing. We now have things like the torchless heaters. So you get rid of the dab. You can still use a very high-end piece of artwork, a glass rig, if you want to go that route. But that might even be scary with a big banger, and you have to put it in alcohol, and there's a lot of steps involved as well with utilizing a rig. Some people really get into it and they love that action of having to clean it, and the motion is oftentimes soothing. For me, I love rolling spliffs. It's a the motion is part of
It's
that
a ritual.
experience. Yeah, the ritual is part of
Mhm.
that experience. But there's also easier methods. There's portable methods like Puffcos. I happen to have an avocado attached to my Puffco, but this one's electronic. You're not going to use any torches for a rig like this. You can take this on the road really easily. The proxy pump from Puffco is even more portable, and you can put that either into a dry piece or into a custom piece, and so many different options for it. Then you have pieces that are just starting to hit the market that look very user friendly. Like this looks like my Keurig machine. I call it my, my dab, my dab coffee maker.
Well, how does
Um,
that work? That
and
one.
this one, you basically just put your concentrate in here. They've got a lot of really cool tools these days, hot knives and different things where you can scoop your concentrate, press a button, it drips off into the unit, and you basically just put your cap on here and you press one button once you've understood the temperature and where you want to be, always starting lower to be safe on that side. And yeah, you press one button, it heats up slowly, and then also this one has this descent mode right out of the box. So the standard operating thing on this guy is you press it on, and naturally it starts to decrease temperature as your dab goes. So you're never burning the end of the dab, which I thought was really nice and smooth, and you're never going to get a big hot rip. You can get a long, you can increase the temperature if you want, but out of the box, it's in this descent mode, which decreases temperature as you're vaporizing it. So
Well, that's
lots of
great. I mean,
amazing options for every type of user, I feel like, when it comes to
yeah, well, I
concentrates.
remember like years ago being at Hemp Fest. This was probably like 10 years ago. And, people would kind of walk around with like these huge, I mean, they had like a backpack that was like full of equipment. And it was like the torch and the dab rig and like all of these different things. And they would sit down and they would open it and they would get all of their wares out. And I mean, there's a lot of ritual, as you said, around that. But I feel like if I'm just out there and I'm like, vaporizing it seems to be a healthier way to consume. It's a more efficient than smoking. Maybe I don't want to have smoke in my home. Maybe I don't want the odor to linger as long.
All
But
for
I
it.
don't want to also have to go through the rigmarole of all of that equipment. It seems like there's some really easy options for people that want to bring something into their home. But what about portable? So I know that vaporization is really popular for people that are traveling because they don't want to smoke, they don't want to be found out, but maybe they don't want to use edibles because of the titration and wanting to be able to get their medicine, especially inside them right away. What are some portable options out there for consuming concentrates?
So I'd say it starts even as small as pens. This one's unfilled right now. This is actually just one of our new essential extracts, New Jersey items that we're about to drop, launch, plug, plug, plug. But this is extremely portable, very small, and you don't press any buttons on this. This is fully breath activated, so you can take as small of a breath or as large of a breath as you like. The reason that I've gone with a very general unit like this is because it's super user friendly. You don't have to find a battery that's the right temperature or the screw size. You literally grab it from the store and you pull on it. You take out the plugs and you pull on it just like you're taking a sip of something or inhaling from a spliff, and it's very controllable, low temperature. So I think that that's an amazing option. Going with an all-in-one rosin pod is what we're calling them right now. The all-in-one is going to denote that it has the battery attached to it already. You don't have to worry about settings. You don't have to worry about getting the right battery for the right cartridge. It's all in one. So this is an all-in-one rosin pod. You can go with something like a Puffco with a custom attachment if you want to get fancy, or just the standard Puffco is great as well. The proxy is going to be an even smaller version of this. You can make it larger. I've got my proxy in a big coconut. It's very customizable, the proxy. They come in different colorways, and you can utilize them dry or with water. Same thing with the Pro. This is the Puffco Pro here, Peak Pro, sorry. And with the Peak Pro, you can use it dry or with water. A lot of new artists, glass artists, are making dry attachments. They think that you're getting more terpenes without that water filtration. Some people argue that the water filtration makes it smoother. So I would definitely play with those two different options for the portable electronic rigs. And then you have other brands that are, competing in that market of portable vaporizers.
Well, I mean, there's no shortage of options for people. So, I think as we kind of wind up this really informative two-part series on concentrates, we want folks to know, don't be afraid. Using concentrates doesn't mean you have to get completely blasted out of your mind. There's a lot of ways to use concentrates that are going to slowly introduce you, like starting low, starting on a low heat setting, starting with a small dab, dabbing a product that is more balanced in THC to CBD, and that you don't have to have a ton of equipment. You don't have to carry around a blowtorch. Things have come a long way, and there's a lot of equipment out there that's very easy to use, that's portable, and you might find the experience of dabbing helps you get that entire terpene and cannabinoid profile effectively and efficiently, and that you may actually be able to taste it more. You may be able to experience it on a different level. So I would say, don't be afraid. You're not going to die, as Nicotine says. And so, if you happen to be at a party and there's dabs going on, or you're at an event, or you're at a new cannabis lounge, don't be afraid to try it out. Just make sure that you follow the advice we give about cannabis consumption all the time. Start low, go slow. You can always take more, but you can't take less. Christina, any closing thoughts for our audience?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add, as you're, if you do want to try it and you're a first timer, my advice would be, don't go take, the biggest drag you can, or don't pull hard and try to inhale all the way. So that start low and go slow even applies to, how you take a hit.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. Should we wrap it up with a
Wrap it
pretty
up.
little bow? All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into concentrates. Thank you, Nicotee, for doing this two-part series with us and being a part of our celebration, our year celebration. And for our viewers now, you're practically fluent in concentrates and the world of extracts. So now remember, when it comes to knowing safe consumption, knowledge is power and flavor. So if you got more burning questions, don't be shy. Drop us a line at info@mypersonalplants.com. And for more, I can't even talk. And for more potent plant insights, hit subscribe, like, and make sure those notifications are on. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring what's in the mix. See you next time.